So you will have heard this message called unknowing or not knowing. And that sounds really mysterious, doesn't it? Esoteric, mystical, mysterious, not knowing. Ooh. Unknowing. Ooh. Well, oh, I do like to burst a bubble or two. I'd love to burst that bubble. So there is nothing in the least bit mystical about not knowing. It's just the absence of the illusion of the one that would know. Knowing is illusory. You know nothing other than what you say you know. That's it. That's the unknowing. That's the not knowing. The absence of the one who says she knows. The absence of the one who says he knows. I know who I am. I know what that is. I know what the hell is going on. You don't. Other than saying you do. You say you do, and you believe yourself. You listen to others who say they do, and you believe them. And the reason is very simple why you believe others when they say they know what's going on, or what things are, or how things are, or why things are. There's a very good reason why you believe them, because you believe yourself. In the conviction that I know myself, and therefore I know other things, I know what other things are, I know things, I know stuff, I know shit. Therefore, if I know shit, then of course there's others who know more shit than me, and I can learn from their shit. And so, and by the way, this, you didn't have a choice in learning all that shit. You were told from a very early age that you had a lot to learn, my boy, my child, didn't you? There's a hell of a lot for you to learn. And you best get on with your job, which is to learn as much as you can. And know as much as you can. And understand as much as you can. And there's nothing wrong with knowing or understanding or learning. It's just that it isn't essentially the reality that I make it. I make it real via my own reality, which is I am. I am real. And why am I real? I'm real because I know myself. I know who I am. And it's very simple who I am. I am me. And that is rarely challenged. And all this message is saying is, what you took to be real, your real self, is nowhere to be found. You can look as much as you want, and you won't find anything. You'll find lots of, you could say you could find lots of things which you've attributed as yours, you know, all the attributions that you've given to yourself. But we're talking actual self, myself. That's really all this message is about. there isn't anything to find. There, without the reality of myself, then everything else loses its complete reality. By complete reality, I mean it's only real. And what you end up with is just not knowing. So you just don't know what's real or unreal. There is really no real and unreal. There's just what appears to be happening, what seems to be happening, what is happening. And then it doesn't matter what's said about it. And that's the freedom from needing to know, the freedom from needing to be right about, well, in order to feel safe, I need to know what's going on. And the wonderful news is you don't need to know. Other than your demand that you do need to know. So not knowing or unknowing is really the end of knowing the difference between real and unreal. The difference between knowing any difference between this and that. This, me, and that, everything else. This and that are not two. Real and unreal are not two. Empty and full are not two. They're not one. Because oneness, the desire for oneness, which here was really strong, Tim so wanted to be at one with oneness. To not feel that emptiness, that aloneness, that is the essence of being human. That longing to be at one with well, for most human beings, they would call it God. This great it, this great other than me, this all-encompassing other than me. And this can be such a disillusionment if it's obvious that there isn't other than me and there isn't me. Because without me, there can be no other than me. I mean, that is the huge paradox of this message. So there is no me, but there isn't anything other than. Without me, there are no others. Because my conviction in my reality is the conviction that there's another reality, that there is an absolute reality. And that's why you could call this message, and why this message is often referred to as not knowing or unknowing. But the wonderful news is you don't need to know. Why would you need to know this in order for this to be exactly as it is? And this being exactly as it is all there is. And even more paradoxically, in the absence of knowing what this is, in the absence of questions about what this is completely known. without any knowing of it. So that's the knowing and unknowing become nonsensical in that sense. And the only reason I would talk about this as not knowing or unknowing is because it's in contrast with the most commonly held reality that I know. So not knowing feels very dangerous to self because I live on my knowledge. That's the ground I stand on. I stand on my knowledge and my understanding of how this is, what this is, how it works, my place in it. But really, there is no place for you here. There is no you to have a place. There are no separate places. It's not even one place. And I don't know where these words come from. Sometimes it's really interesting. Sometimes they're heard as they're spoken. And there's great amusement at how nonsensical they are. It is funny. There are a lot of advantages to not knowing rather than knowing. Freedom being you could say, the greatest. Because it's endless work, this knowledge lark that most human beings are engaged in to keep themselves safe. But you might ask the question, safe from what? And of course, it's always safe from the future, from what might come, from what might happen. Well, the great news is there's nothing to come. There's nothing that's going to happen. There is only happening. Not going to happen, not did happen. And you won't even know the happening. You won't be able to find the happening. The happening begins and ends simultaneously. It hasn't, you won't be able to box happening up. And that's what we're talking about. This life happening, just as it is, in all its obviousness. So you don't have to worry about finding it because you can't. You don't have to worry about attaining it because you can't. There is no attainment. This is, you could say, this is fully attained. This is the only attainment. This is the only prize. Life is the prize. So rarely prized, though, by human beings, so rarely prized, so rarely acknowledged. But life couldn't care whether you acknowledge it or not. There isn't a life separate from life. There aren't separate lives. Just life. Okay. So I'm happy to take any questions, or if anyone's got anything they'd like to share, doesn't have to be a question, then please feel free.
Tim, can you hear me?
Hi, David.
Hello, nice to see you again. I've got quite an unstable connection here, so it's a very
I can hear you fine.
a very brief share in light of what you've been saying. I was always tickled by, I mean, we know Advaita means not two, but Vedanta means the end of knowledge, apparently.
Yeah.
Veda is knowledge and Anta is the end.
Nice.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Isn't it great?
It's fantastic.
You never, yeah, whoever would believe that I'm a Advaita Vedanta scholar?
It's an oxymoron, I think that's called.
I know, how funny. Yeah, it is an oxymoron. Yeah, but there's the end of knowledge. But yeah, you could. This is the end. See, it sort of sounds misleading if you say the end of knowledge, because of course there's no knowledge lost, but knowledge loses its weight that it has. You know that not knowledge for self is seen as it's very real. And value, it loses its value. That's the beauty of it. So one of the freedoms is I was always envious of those with greater knowledge than myself. As if you've ever had any academic aspirations,
sure,
which if you've been to university, you must have had some, otherwise you wouldn't have gone. Then of course you can't help but value knowledge as a self. That's what you're after. And freedom from that envy, really.
Sure.
That's great.
I suppose in some ways it also, you know, there's a biblical, you know, the notion of the tree of knowledge as well.
Yeah. Oh,
which
yeah.
is what fucked things up.
Yeah.
So there are kind of parallel.
Oh, there's loads in the Garden of Eden story that has parallels with what we're speaking about.
Sure.
There really is, yeah.
It's nice to dwell on these things.
No, it is. I love the Garden of Eden story. It is beautiful, yeah. You know, the fall from innocence.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is not, you know, into knowledge.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for that. Just thought I'd
yeah. Share. Oh, thanks, David.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, just to say a bit more about that. Of course, in the in the Genesis story, of course, of the Garden of Eden, then the great fall is self-consciousness, that they covered themselves because they knew themselves, you know, they knew themselves. And so with that came shame. And shame, shame isn't completely mine, but really without self being prominent in life, without me and my shame, life is so much lighter. The fact that I have to guard against shame. I have to guard myself against being in a situation where I might be embarrassed, where I would feel shamed, where I would feel self-conscious. And that is a huge burden. And it's a huge restriction on life. For virtually all human beings, that's a huge burden. And of course, with shame comes guilt. It's my fault because I could have done otherwise. Once I become self-aware with self-knowledge and self-consciousness, then of course I have to be guarded. I have to protect myself at all times. And then there's it's living with that facade, with that almost, I have to arm myself against the world, particularly against others, other selves. Yeah. And there's lots of spiritual paths that talk about innocence, a return to innocence. Well, there is actually no return, but human beings are naturally innocent, pretending that they're guilty. And the pretense of guilt is me. And self won't give up guilt. Self really likes guilt because there's nothing more self-affirming than guilt. I'm responsible. Because what guilt and responsibility affirms is my power. I could do otherwise. I can learn from it. I can improve. I can become better. I can improve myself and I can improve my life. And I can improve the world. So one of the odd things about this message is it's really compassionate towards the self, which is actually only trying to do its best to keep the human being safe from what it believes to be constant danger. Has anyone else got a question they'd like to ask or something to share?
Tim?
Hi, Heidi.
Hi, Tim. I really enjoyed what you were saying there about that. And I just, I guess I was just started thinking about how, you know, when there's an awareness around those protections, you know, those, whatever that may be for people, I guess what remains is this very kind of I can't even now the words.
It's okay.
It just, yeah, just there's a feeling of like really raw. Yeah. I don't know. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. So just I guess I think about it you know, like almost like standing on a stage, you know, shaking and shivering and frightened.
Yeah.
And vulnerable, I guess, or you know.
Yeah.
But in that there's a kind of a sense of okayness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's hard to find the words, Heidi. But yeah, I like the word okayness. Because life as it is has an okayness that could never have in relation to me, because all I can ever do with life is relate it to myself, and how is my interpretation of what's happening in life, how is that going to affect me potentially? It's all about potential, and that I can only judge as on a scale of okayness, from great, you know, amazingly brilliant, what I really want from life, to dreadful and appalling and terribly threatening.
Yeah, all at the same time. Yeah.
And most amazingly is that life as it is always okay, has an okayness, an inherent okayness that is just not accessible for me because I am in relation to it. And it just can't, I can't convey it, because I'm talking about an okayness that even when things are desperately not okay. So all of the things that I would have said were not okay about life, they too have this inherent okayness. And I like the word okayness because it isn't good or bad. It's this utter neutrality. It's, I mean, you can call it, I think I could say okayness and unconditional love. I use those in exactly the same way. And the okayness is just that things are okay because they are as they are. And they couldn't be otherwise. The otherwise always came from me. It always came from my demands that life should be as I say it should be. That's the not okayness. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that sadness isn't sad. It doesn't mean that pain isn't painful. It's just that without me saying that this shouldn't be happening, I shouldn't feel this sadness, I shouldn't feel this pain, there shouldn't be this loss. Actually, even if I do say that, without me saying it should be different, it's very hard to convey, but life is okay even when it's not okay. And there's huge compassion in that. If you sit with someone and they come out with all the usual that me says about when shit hits the fan and things aren't going my way, and you're sitting with someone, they go, yeah, but this shouldn't be happening, and it's just not okay. This is not right. That there's no way that life shouldn't be this way. And they feel dreadful, and they feel pain, and you just go, yeah, it's not okay. But that's okay. It's okay to not feel okay. It's okay to think this isn't okay. It's there is something about that is massively compassionate, because how many human beings do you know suffer the greatest pain, the greatest suffering from their sense that their life, that their self is not okay, and that it's not okay, that it's not okay. There's most of the suffering. If life is okay, absolutely freely to be not okay, it's immensely lighter just in that. Regardless of non-duality, I'm speaking here. I mean, just in that alone, allowing it to not be okay. There you go. That's my counseling for the day. I'm not doing any more. That's my counselor hat on there. But that is a big thing, though. This message is not about life being okay. It just is okay, okay or not. Thanks, Heidi. But if you did want to help anyone who's in distress, just say it's all right. There you go. That's my counseling tip of the day. Sitting with anyone who is feeling shitter than shit, go, yeah, shit, isn't it? That's all right. It's fine to be shit. I know you think it's wrong to be shit, but it's not. What's the most human experience? Feeling shit. There you go. Let's say it like it is. That's the most common human experience, not happiness. Fuck off with your happiness talk. That's the burden. That's why you feel so shit, because you think you should be happy. Who ever said you should be happy? Well, I'll tell you who, your parents. Let's blame them, because your parents said, somebody asked them, well, what do you want for your children? Oh, I don't want anything. Oh, only to be happy. Bastards. Complete and utter bastards. Only to be happy. So that negates every other emotion, making all of those a failure. You know, so you've written off 90% of your life just with that one sentence. Thanks, Mum. Oh dear. I just want to keep them from pain. Oh yeah, thanks. Like that's not gonna, yeah. Who's gonna be free from pain? What a load of rubbish. Of course, they meant well. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Bastards nonetheless, though.
I'm just laughing because my mom's here. My mom's here in the call.
I hope you're listening, Mum.
It's so true.
It's so true.
So true.
Mm. Yeah, if I could do one thing with all parents, it would be to stop them from saying, I only want you to be happy. Dreadful thing to say.
It's a huge strain on the parent too.
Pardon?
It's a huge strain on the parent too.
Exactly.
Oh
yeah.
God, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Well, they were taught the same. And so they're only referring to what their parents told them. And of course, they've felt dreadful their whole life every time they felt unhappy and felt wrong, you know, something wrong. There must be something wrong with me because I'm unhappy. Well, there's plenty in life to be unhappy about. Unhappy and happy. One is not better than the other. One is preferable to the other. But by making emotions, feelings wrong, which is what I do with myself, I make the emotions that I enjoy and I like, I make those the right ones, and then I make the ones I don't like the wrong ones. And so there's something wrong with me. And the beautiful message, another beautiful thing about this message is there is nothing wrong with you. How could there be? There's no you having emotions, there's just emotions. There's no you having feelings, there's just feelings. And in that, feelings are all, you could say allowed. Allowed's the wrong word, but everything is allowed without me, because I am the adjudicator of whether something's allowed or not, whether something's accepted or not. I accept it or I reject it. And of course, I reject all the shit that I don't like. And in that is the conflict, is the violence, is the the great sense of separation. Because I'm pushing life away. Saying this isn't how life should be. But I feel I have to put a caveat on that and say, of course, you're not doing that either. When there's a sense of I can do no other than try to make my life work. I am my life's work. Because it can sound as, with this message, it can sound as though I am is the enemy. You know, self is the enemy. Self is the problem. So the task is to get rid of me. That's not the message. The message is there is no me. So there is no chance of you going from me to no me. There's no me to get rid of me and become no me. It all becomes a bit silly, but there is a difference, because I remember hearing this, and of course, all I was interested in is getting rid of myself. And I can genuinely, really, I can't emphasize this enough. There was no getting rid of me. Myself, there is no self to get rid of. There is no knowing. You will not know no self. Imagine, that's the not knowing. Because of course, the self that I had in the story, the self that I had, I said I knew. And in the absence, there's just not knowing. There's not a knowing of no self. There was no recognition of anything. How would you recognize emptiness? There's nothing to see. There's nothing to find. What you've taken for you is actually empty, along with everything else. That's the not to bit. That's the non-separation.
I think Tim's frozen.
Yeah, he's frozen.
Yeah.
He'll come back. He'll probably rejoin. Unfortunately, my iPad is frozen, but Kelly can see if he joins somewhere else. Just let us know.
Tim's coming back in a minute. He's just dropped out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cal.
Hi, Mom.
Sorry about that. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves.
Oh, he's back.
Okay,
You're
and
muted.
just unmute. There you go.
Sorry about that, everyone. So,
It's okay.
yeah, my internet it just disconnected. Don't know why. Right, that's enough of that. I haven't got a clue what I was saying. Would it? Yeah. Has anybody got any questions about it? All gets a little bit convoluted when we when we get into self and no self. It can all get a little bit knotted, or feel like that anyway.
It looks like Faith has a question.
Hi, Faith.
You have to unmute yourself, Faith.
Faith, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry. It's
Thanks.
really hit me again this week. What a horrendously awful message this is that you're speaking of. I mean, it's just so not what I want. That's one thing.
Thanks,
and the other
Faith.
thing is I cannot reconcile what is being spoken of with all the magnificent art and music and architecture that you get in all the religions. There's two different things there, I know, but I can't. Yeah, no, it's not. It's the same blooming thing. What you seem to be saying is ghastly because there's nothing in it. And yet you get all these magnificent cathedrals, music, paintings.
Yeah.
No, it's not just yet. I mean, how can you reconcile, or is it not to be reconciled?
Well, the thing is, what I've been speaking about today is I've been a little bit on the emptiness trail today, haven't I, Faith? So I've really emphasized the emptiness, and I tend to do that. But of course, the emptiness is completely full of everything. So yeah, this doesn't have anything to say about why some human beings are drawn. This is more about seeing the beauty of life rather than walking past it totally self-absorbed, just absorbed in my own desires, my own needs, my own fears, my own anxieties. Then the beauty of life is more obvious. So that doesn't contradict why there'd be all this beautiful art in spirituality, right? The beauty of the world, the fullness, shall we say, is even more obvious when it's empty. Now, I know that's paradoxical, but that does seem how it is. Yeah.
I mean, we used to go to Tony and laugh when we came out about abandon hope, all you who enter here.
Mm.
But it really hit me last week.
Yeah, I've laughed about that a bit, Faith.
But we laughed about it and had raised our glasses, and when you're not raising your glass, it's pretty grim.
Well, you see, I can understand why it might sound grim, because it's saying there isn't a future. Is that why you're saying it's grim?
That there's what it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, like at the moment, I've got neighbour problems. but there's no one who can sort it out. It's like, this is what is being dished out. And I think that life has been spent, you know, in La La Land. One day in the future,
Right, yeah.
it will all be resolved. Well, it ain't
Yeah.
going to be resolved in the future, because
No.
there's no future
No.
for it to be resolved, which is
But that doesn't mean to say it won't be resolved in the present, though, Faith.
it's letting go of the belief that there's something here that can sort it, or
Yeah.
someone else that can sort it. It's this just having to stand back and it's happening, and there's nothing anyone can do about it.
See, the weird thing is, again, this may sound really paradoxical, but without me and my concerns about what I can do and what I can't do, or what can be done and what can't be done, doing just happens really easily and effortlessly. And what you might call problems can get sorted with very little seeming effort. See, the only illusion, Faith, is that there's you who could or couldn't do something about it. Or there's you who could or couldn't ask people to help you do something about it.
It's this being in a place where what is being spoken of is inconceivable.
Yeah.
And you think, why am I bothering? I can't seem to get off the treadmill. And other people aren't on it and they're very happy. Well, some of the time.
Yeah, some of the time. Yeah.
There must be something over there, that's you.
Right.
Are you with me? That
Yeah.
keeps you talking about this.
Yeah, it would seem like it, wouldn't it? I don't know.
And Tony and all the others and all the rest.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you ask me why I speak about it, it feels like compassion. I mean, it might not feel like it to Faith today, but if I look for why, then that's what comes up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Faith.
We'll just get on with our tears, shall we?
Yeah.
However you spell it.
Yeah. Well, maybe you know, maybe in that imagined future, Faith, we'll meet up at we'll meet up at one of Tony's talks again sometime, and raise a glass to the end of hope.
Okay. We'll meet in Lagash.
Yeah. Thanks, Faith.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, this message isn't about solving problems. That's why it can feel it can feel hopeless. I've said it before. The end of hope is not hopeless. The end of hope is neutral. It's just what is. Hopeless exists because I desire hope, because I need hope. And when I need hope, then the absence of that hope feels hopeless. But neither are real. Both are about an imagined future that doesn't exist. So I tend not to talk about this message as hopeless because I don't have any sense that it is hopeless. There needs to be a future for this to be hopeless. And there needs to be hope in order for hopeless to exist. And there is neither. But of course, whilst I live in hope, I live in hope is the essence of self. Whilst I live in hope, the absence of that hope feels hopeless. I know that. Has anybody else got anything they'd like to ask or anything they'd like to share?
Johan has his hand up.
Johan, yeah? Johannes.
Hi, Tim.
Hi.
Thank you for this talk. I really enjoy it.
Oh, thank you.
It's the way you're talking is quite clear. There's nobody there who could have hope. There's nobody there who have a better future or whatever. And but what happened is that there's this felt sense within the body of contraction of this ease. It seems so real, and one side is that it's clear when I listen to you that there's nobody there, but there's this contraction there. There's seemingly someone who owns that. Say, oh, I feel contracted, I feel stuck, I feel guilty, I feel this, I feel that. The felt sense within the body. And how to deal with that? Because it's clear there's nobody there. There's nobody owns this body, but there's this sense is there. The sense of contraction in the interaction with the outer world or the world we perceive as outer world. There's still contraction happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's this polarity. One side is clear, there's nobody there. The other side is there's this felt sense of, but I'm stuck, I'm feel contracted, I'm feel real here.
Yeah.
How to deal with it?
Wow.
You can,
there's a question. Are you asking me for advice about how you deal with yourself? And are you, sorry, just to be clear, Johannes, is that how you pronounce your name?
yeah.
Are you saying that your sense of feeling, that bodily felt sense of being inside, are you saying that comes and goes?
it's shifting, but I think as more I listen to this message on the other side, instead of contraction, more and more is happening or seemingly to happen. Because for a while I listened to this message and, oh yeah, it feels easy and a little bit relaxeder. And now, like the last 2 weeks or so, so big contraction within the body.
Right.
And I thought, what's going on here? One is this open space, freedom of nobody's there, and there's nobody in here. And the other side is this.
No. Okay, well, we can only tell stories about this, Johannes.
Yeah.
But if you want me to tell a story, I can. So if, yeah, because you're telling me your story. So I think it's quite common for, if it becomes, you could say, intellectually understood and not even questioned anymore, that there's no self. How do you think that felt sense of being embodied, which you could say has been alive for however long the body's been alive, since the age of 1.5, how is that going to react? Well, it's going to react with fear. It's going to react to protect itself. Because the way I see the illusion of self is an illusory self-protective mechanism, protective energy. You could say, like a suit of armor, I protect myself. So the sense of I has a duty. Its job is to keep me safe. Well, you've had this intellectual understanding that there is no self. And it sounds as though you've really concluded that. And of course, that felt sense will react to that. And I think in most people's stories, that's how this story goes, of listening to this message, hearing the message, it resonating, not with self. Self doesn't hear this. Self wants to reject it, but it's heard, and there's something hears it. We can't say what. Life hears it as, oh yeah, well, that is how it is. And self goes, right, you can't go down that road. And so what's it going to do? It's going to reinforce itself. So it's going to use every strategy it has. Self is a slippery bastard and will do anything to maintain itself. That's its job. It only has one job: self-maintenance, to keep me existing. That's my job. That's me's job, to keep me. It's not really even interested in the body. I mean, yeah, the body, I mean, it attributes the body to itself, but that's not really what it's interested in. It's not really interested in the human being. It's not really interested in welfare, just itself. It's a self. It's in a loop where it just refers to itself and maintains itself. Now, you've had an intellectual, I'd say intellectual, at the level of mind and at the level of, I don't know what other level you'd call it. By the way, this is all stories, but something has heard this and undeniably has heard it. Now, me's got wind of that there's something there that goes, this is true. This is how it really is. And really, there's no place for me in that. So what does me do? It uses every strategy it can to maintain itself. And the usual strategies, the number one strategy me uses is fear. And of course, all associated with fear: anxiety, neuroses, anxiety particularly, not letting, doesn't let the body sleep. Me doesn't let the body sleep. That'll work. That'll make you even more anxious. That'll make the body more tired. Me then gets an upper hand again and feels more and more contracted. And remember, self isn't interested in the body's and the mind's psychological well-being. it couldn't give a fuck as long as it's real. And the story that you've just expressed, I've heard that lots of times from other human beings who this message has resonated with, where there is, and who knows how long the period is, where there's this sense of conflict between me and, you could say me and life, really. Or you could say conflict between me and love, me and this unconditional love, which is just meaning life as it is. Because there's great conflict between me and life as it is, because I need life to be as I want it to be, not life as it is. Life as it is, I mean, if every human being in their life story could monitor what percentage of their life was when me was satisfied with it, it would be minuscule, wouldn't it? Yeah. That's just the nature of self. And self is always in conflict. You know, it is that conflict. And so if there's been a resonance with this message, then inevitably, it would seem, self fights back, because what this message is doing is negating self. And if you feel it, then yeah, self will contract itself in an attempt to feel more solid. Frustration, fear, anger towards who you heard this message from. That's really common. I fucking hated Tony Parsons for quite a long time. Sorry, Tony. But yeah, of course, you know, who does he think he is? Telling me, you know, it's his fault. Let's blame him. Look what he's done to me. Or just, it doesn't have to be personified. It can just generally with this. So, you know, you can just hate non-duality. Me hates non-duality. Well, of course, me hates non-duality. It's quite right to. Non-duality is saying, you know, it doesn't even recognize me. So I don't know. So I would say, so I haven't got any advice, obviously, Johannes, but it might be small consolation. I don't know if it is or not. It might be some small consolation that what appears to be happening there for Johannes is pretty typical.
Okay.
Is that
No,
small?
it's
It's very familiar to what happened with Tim.
okay.
I could say that.
Yeah, I just wonder because the story sucks more or less. I think I let go of the ego story, but I can't. It's not possible.
No, me'll hang on to it for dear life.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
There's one thing for sure. If me stops appearing, it won't be me who's done it.
Yeah.
That's for
Thank
sure.
God.
I mean, I can, you know, if I could go on, you know, go to the bookmakers and bet on that, then I would, because that's a surefire bet. It won't be you who gets rid of you.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Because there is nothing to get rid of, you know.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim.
I think in the absence of you, Johannes, if you wake up tomorrow morning and there's no sense of self, there'll be no one to notice it. And the only way you'd recognize it would be the absence of the symptoms that you created, that Johannes' sense of self. So you go, that's how it was here. It was weeks and weeks before I would even contemplate the absence of self, because there's no knowing that. Because I am the knowing. If the absence of I am, there's no knowing, really. How would there be? That's the message. Naturally, this is not known. There's no knowing what this is. There's no knowing what I am. There's no knowing.
Yeah.
And if that becomes, like you saying, it becomes very clear, then me will do everything it can to draw itself back into a real solid contracted center of feeling centered in the body, so that I feel real again. And it's much easier for self to do that negatively, you know, through negative feelings than it is through positive. So the most common strategy, I would say, self uses is fear. Fear and self are, you know, they're a marriage made in hell.
And it happens for nobody.
Yeah, it all happens for nobody. But shit is dramatic for me, isn't it?
Yeah, she's real.
Yeah, because it's real, of course. So, yeah, it is very dramatic, because I am a drama queen. You know, we tend to use the word drama queen for extroverts who make an outward fuss about everything. But every self is a drama queen. And who's the star of the drama? Who's the star of the movie of my life? Well, that'll be me. I'm not really interested in all my co-stars. They need to be in very small print in the titles. There's the headline, and then very small print, all the bit part players in my life. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't be can't
That's
give you
great.
any advice about it, because of course, if I gave you some advice, then you're very likely to go out and do what I've asked you to do, and I really wouldn't want you to do that.
Yeah, nothing is more than enough.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, with self, with this whole self thing, self is until it isn't. That's how it feels. And then when it isn't, there's nothing even noticing. So in the greatest loss of all, which is the loss of myself, there is no loss. And nothing has been lost. I like the analogy of the mirage in the desert. That's self being a mirage, because in the loss of the mirage, of course, it's no loss. You've lost no water. The mirage never quenched your thirst. It was just the illusion that it would quench your thirst. But in the loss of it, there's nothing lost at all. Silas. Yeah. Can you unmute, Silas?
Oh.
Yeah, I think it's done.
Yeah, lovely. Hi.
Yeah, I'm just I don't know if you can talk about if you have, even though there's no me, but you still have in a way a sense of control. Yeah, I think the free will, for example, maybe is too, in a way, too abstract for me. What is free will? What is the will? But
Yeah.
a sense of control, I still feel like or having, or of course things is just appearing, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you asking, is there a sense of control here?
Yeah, or is it just like, whoa?
Well, it's a bit like I tried to describe with hope, Silas. The whole notion of control is mine. That's so the absence of that sense doesn't feel out of control. That's a fear, that's a story that me would tell about without me and my control, my management of my life, then there would just be utter chaos. And that would be completely out of control, mental, just a nutcase, completely, it would do, well, and probably, because I've had dark thoughts, probably I would go and I'm probably not going to murder anybody, but you know, I'm going to kick some granny over, because I thought of that the other day when I saw this old woman, and I thought what a laugh it would be to kick her sticks away. And without me putting a rein on that, then I'm going to go out and I'm just going to push old women in the road and stuff, you know, that kind of out of control.
Yeah.
No. See, the thing about this, Silas, is it's not about control or non-control. What you've called you, Silas Johansson, that human being, just does what he does. Without a doer, without anyone. There's nobody in there doing you, Silas. What you've called you is a made up, it's just
What is it?
It's a pain in the ass. It's literally a nuisance, more than a nuisance, a nightmare for most human beings. And Silas Johansson would just be the body and the mind, the humanity, the humanness of the human being would be free from all of that crap. But not out of control or in control, neither. There's the freedom. Freedom from being in control, freedom from being out of control. Both are just made up stories for me. Because of course I'm terrified of being out of control. So what does me do? I stay completely in control, and then now and again, when life has become too imprisoning for me, and I have to be let out of my prison cell, I go out and I get completely pissed. I drink too much. I probably, you know, maybe if I'm going the whole hog, I take some drugs as well. I act totally irresponsibly. I feel this immense freedom from my prison cell that I've kept myself in. And I have a wild time, you know, of not being in control. But unfortunately, I wake up in the morning and guess what me says? Guess what I say? I've done some terrible things. I've let myself out of control. I've let myself down. I've embarrassed myself. I've humiliated myself. And so then I pay, for the next 3 weeks, I pay a hefty price for my little time that I've allowed myself out of control. And most human beings I know, I will say particularly men, they go through a cycle of that. I dread to think what will happen when the lockdown completely is lifted in the UK, and there will be complete and utter anarchy from all the selves who have been so controlling themselves, and they're just going to go mental. Yeah. So we look forward to that on the streets of England. I think that's inevitable as well. That is inevitable, that's good. But anyway, so there's no control, there's no one in control or out of control.
If I can say something.
Sorry, yeah, I talk too much, Silas.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I have kind of observed this human being in like for quite some months now to see if I was in control.
Oh, you've been,
And-
have you been monitoring
and
your
my
control?
Hmm?
What have you concluded?
Definitely there is no control.
That's good.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah. But that is, I mean, that's one of the ways that me stays in the illusion of, stays in charge of being in control, is saying, me usually says, well, if I allowed myself to be fully myself, out of control, if the controller wasn't there, then I would behave terribly. I'm not saying that's not the case for some human beings, but really, yeah, it's all that judgment. And the main reason for control is fear, of course, because that need for control creates a lot of fear. And although this message isn't about complete freedom from fear, I would say there's natural fear, you know, fear of a snarling dog. That's completely natural. But most what we call fear, especially anxiety, neurotic fear, you know, that's all self-created. And so freedom from that is the reason, one of the reasons I would call this a compassionate message. Has anybody else got a question?
I have a question, Tim.
Yes.
Would you rather push an old lady over and get away with it, or not push an old lady over, but everyone thinks you did?
Tell everyone again, because I'd like everyone to think it's good. This is a good moral dilemma.
Would you rather push an old lady over and get away with it, or not push an old lady over, but everyone thinks you did?
It's a no-brainer for me.
You push her over.
Push her over, yeah.
You guys are so warped.
Well, it's much better. No one's ever going to know, and there's pleasure in pushing her over. We've already touched on that already. And so you get the pleasure, and no one's going to know. Whereas the other way, you get no enjoyment of pushing her over, and everyone thinks you did. It's dreadful, and you're going to be tarred. You're going to be tarred forever as the old lady pusher over her.
Sick puppies.
Yeah, I'm challenging anyone to go with the second choice. Nice though. It's good, that dilemma.
Darren, what would you do?
Well, yesterday at the bank, an old lady did ask me to check her balance. She said, so I pushed her over.
Oh, that is the shittest joke ever.
It's really bad.
That's quite good. Oh, good. Nice one. Has anybody got a question? Otherwise, I'll go to the chat. There's a few comments. JP. Oh, it says privately. Okay. Grigory says, Hi, Tim. You mentioned several times, Lisa Cairns, do you think your messages are similar? Essentially, yes. Essentially. The thing about this is you can pick all day, which is well, it's fun. If you meet with other people after a non-duality meeting, you can spend a long time, you know, picking differences between what different speakers says, the words they use, the way they express this. But yeah, essentially, yeah, essentially all the same. Really, there's two. You could say you could categorize non-duality into two camps. One that says there's nothing that self can do about self, and the other that there is something that you can do. Really, they're the two. But non-duality is there's not you and other. That's non-duality. So that's always the same. How long we got? 5 minutes. Anybody got anything they'd like to say or ask just before we finish? No more jokes from Darren. Although that was quite good. I wouldn't want you to think that I do actually push old women over.
I was going to say that was definitely a dad joke. That was a dad.
So it is. That is absolutely a dad joke. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So this isn't. So this message isn't about doing or not doing. It's about there not being a doer or a non-doer. That's because I remember reading Ramesh Balsekar, and basically I'm summarizing his message. There was more than this, but basically it was non-doership. So that there is no doer of doing. But the tricky thing about that is I heard that there must be therefore a non-doer of doing. You know, because that's the only way I could work it out. So in the absence of the doer, there must be a substitute, you know, because I'm a sportsman, and so I'm having a bad game. I'm not doing very well as the doer, so I've been taken off, and my replacement is the non-doer. On he comes, hoping to score a late winner, but there is no non-doer replacing what I had called me, who was doing everything. And that's what I was waiting for. I was waiting until I knew the absence of myself. Now there's a game. And And so this message isn't about the resolution of your problem. This is saying there is no resolution. This doesn't need resolving. Resolution is an end. There isn't an end, nor a beginning, nor a middle. You can't cut this up. You can't box this. You can't find a beginning and an end. And you won't know non-doer. There won't be a replacement for you. You're illusory. If you stop turning up, there's no one to notice. That's why it feels like not knowing. But it's not knowing any difference between knowing and not knowing. Known or not known, who cares? Well, there's a simple answer to who cares about that, and that's me. Well, it doesn't matter a shit. Life couldn't give a fuck, not a flying fuck either, about you and your demand that you know what's going on. There's only one person that cares about that. Me. And that not caring, that ambivalence, that neutrality is the love, is what you've heard 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways about unconditional love. That neutrality, that not caring whether you care or not, is the unconditional love, is the freedom that this is. You won't know it. It simply is, just as it is. Well, I think I've done a little conclusion now. I don't usually do that. No. I don't know where I would go. That's come out of nowhere. I've actually rounded up a meeting. That almost feels like a first.
Keep it in, Tim.
Keep it in. Keep it in your trousers, Tim. Sorry about that. Oh, for God's sake. Right. What? Kelly, why are you pulling that face? Okay. Well, lovely to see you all. Thanks a lot for coming again.
Lovely to see you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you.
Just a very quick reminder, if you'd like to be on the email list, just email me through the website. It seems like the new link is working fine. I'm staying away from YouTube because I think, you know, if I was a Zoom bomber, that's where I'd go. You know, if I wanted to, rather than keep it in, get it out, that's where I'd go. It's YouTube, pervert's paradise. So, just in case there's anyone not sampled the glorious literary masterpiece that is this Deafening Silence, then thanks again for everyone who's written a review on Amazon. It's had some lovely reviews. Even if you don't buy it, go on Amazon and read the reviews, and then you'll have to buy it, I think, if you read a few of them. Oh yeah, and the website, Dimitri's done the events page, so all future meetings will be on that, on the website, with the links. And also on that same page, if you scroll down to the bottom, if you fancy a one-to-one, absolutely pointless one-to-one chat with me, which will get you absolutely nowhere and you'll gain nothing from. If you'd like that, please, I put that there as an option. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
you.
Lovely to see you all. All the best.